Hey, Mr. Dybel.
How we doing, Larry?
Not too bad. How you doing? Ruth Ann with you then?
Ruth Ann and Richard are with me.
Okay. How you guys doing?
Good.
Hopefully you got good air conditioning there. It's hot out.
It is definitely hot out.
Oh, there he is.
Looks like if you wanted to go out to eat, you missed your chance. Looks like everybody got pushed back to no restaurants closed.
Are they shutting things down again?
Yep, Lansing got moved from a 4 to a 2. Grand Rapids region got moved from a 4 to a 3, so everything's closing down again.
We just opened Culver's today.
Takeout only.
She just announced that, did she?
Yep. I don't know when it's effective yet, but yes.
She say anything about schools?
Nope.
I don't know. I've been pretty good with this stay home, stay safe. Although it's hard to go on inspection that way.
Yes.
I wonder if that means if Lansing is a 2, if offices have to close again. I can't keep track.
Yeah, I'm not sure about that. I would think so, because they just opened, were allowed to open in the last transition.
Mm-hmm. Fun stuff.
So the last board member that I don't, the alternate, Bob Starkweather, are you on here? I just haven't seen your name yet.
I don't see Bob.
Well, the last public hearing Steve and I had, somebody's name was FBI surveillance ban, so maybe he's going under an assumed name.
So everyone knows this is recording and it's also live on YouTube.
Okay, is Eric going to do the introductions or is Cole?
Neither.
I believe it's Ruth.
Yeah, and I'm running this one, Steve, today. I know
Okay,
you're feeling pretty lucky about that.
thank you. Right from the lake.
Yep. So I have 301, Ruth, so whenever you're ready, we can get started. Or unless we don't have all our VOD members, do we have all of them now?
Yeah, I'm not sure if Mr. Starkweather is here yet. Is it possible he's calling in on a phone? If you're calling in, Bob, you can dial *6 to unmute yourself.
But we do have our alternate here.
He's the alternate.
Bob is the alternate.
Oh, Bob is the alternate. I think we could proceed without him if we have everybody else on, so. that's
Ruth Ann's working on getting him on. I just got
Okay,
off the phone with him.
Okay, fantastic.
Hey, Stacy,
Yes,
I do see that Bob's on now, so if we want to go ahead and get started, I think we're good to get started.
Here we go.
wonderful. So I think, Cole, if you want to put the agenda up for us, please. And so welcome to the Bentley Depue Drain Board of Determination meeting. I'm Stacy Hissong. Steve Koski is going to administer all the different Zoom information for you today, how to participate in a public hearing via Zoom. So Steve, if you would like to start with that.
Yes. Welcome, everybody. Good afternoon. We're having this meeting today on Zoom in accordance with the governor's executive orders and federal and state agency recommendations related to the ongoing coronavirus public health emergency. In the meeting today, we will make every effort to ensure full participation and transparency for those in attendance. For each vote, the board will do a roll call vote after a motion has been made and seconded. And the chair of the board can handle this how he wants, but the way we've done it previously is there will be a motion, a second, and then the chair can turn it over to me to do a roll call vote of the board. With respect to members of the public who are in attendance, we ask that you remain muted during the meeting. This is nothing personal, and I probably will go through and mute everybody if you are not muted, just because with so many people in attendance, the microphones pick up a lot of noise, and so it can become a little overwhelming if we start getting a lot of noise from people's microphones. We will have a public comment period, as you'll see on the agenda, and at that point, then I will call on individuals, and you'll be able to unmute yourself and give your comment. When you do give your comment, we would ask that you state your name and address when you're making the comment for the record. And public comment will be in accordance with the rules that are set forth by the board here before we begin the proceedings. And just so the board knows, we can display a timer as well, so that you can keep track of how long people's comments are. In order to indicate that you want to comment, we ask that you virtually raise your hand on Zoom. There's a raise your hand option on the right of your screen under the participants list. And so you can select that, and a blue icon, hand icon will show up next to your name. And that way I'll know that you would like to speak, and we will answer those in order of when the hands are raised. If you're calling in by telephone, you can also indicate that you would like to comment. And to do that, you dial *9, and that will raise your hand on here as well. And I'll review these procedures again before we get to public comment, so you don't have to worry too much about remembering it.
There will be no Zoom test after we're done, trust me.
Right, yeah, don't take notes. There's a chat function as well where you can send messages. Those messages will only go to me. And in those messages, you can let me know if you're having issues or anything like that. But you can also submit your public comment in that chat function if you would prefer me to read the comment to the board. But if you're going to submit it in the chat, I would just ask that you put your name and address so that we can have that for the record. If you experience any connection issues, if you're connected electronically via computer, either with the video or with audio, we recommend that you just disconnect and try to reconnect into the meeting. And if that doesn't solve your problem, then you can use the information on your notice to dial into the meeting. And likewise for the board members, if we have an issue where a board member drops off, we will just pause and wait for them to come back on. And then the same thing, if they're still not able to get on, we'll try to have them call in. And if that still doesn't work, that's the point then when we would proceed with the alternate member stepping in for that board member. This also is being recorded. And so this recording will be used in the future if we ever need the record of these proceedings. So if at any point somebody is speaking and their audio cuts out, I may just interrupt and ask them to repeat themselves. And that's simply because we want to make sure that we have the full record on this recording. So at that point, Stacy, I'll hand it back to you.
All right, thank you, Steve. At this time, we're going to move to item 1B in the agenda. And Ruth, if you'd like to do the introductions. All right, what we'll do, I think we might be having some technical difficulties. So would the Board of Determination members each introduce themselves?
My name is Steve Willard, and I'm a member of the Board of Determination today.
My name is Tom Campbell. I'm part of the Board of Determination today also.
My name is Tim Hogg. I'm also a member of the Board of Determination.
And we have our alternate here. Will your alternate please introduce yourself? He might be having some technical difficulties as well. So from the drain staff, we have the Drain Commissioner, Richard Wagner, on Zoom. I think they might be having some difficulties with their audio. The Deputy, Eric Dybel, as well as Ruth Ann Clark to assist us. Moving on in the agenda, from Spicer Group, we have Chris Mattson and Larry Protashevitz from Spicer Group, who will be giving an engineering presentation and answering any questions the board may have. And we have me, Stacy Hissong, Steve Koski, our Zoom master, and then also Cole Hedrick here as legal counsel for the Drainage District. So with that, I'm going to see if Ruth is available to give the oath. If not, I will do so.
Can you hear us now, Stacy?
Yes, much better.
All right.
Perfect timing. Now for the oath.
All right, I'm gonna read the oath to the board members. Do you each solemnly swear that you will faithfully perform and discharge the duties imposed upon you as required by law as members of the Board of Determination appointed by the Eaton County Commissioner to determine the necessity for maintenance, improvement of the Bentley and Depue drain located in Eaton Rapids Township in said county? Do you each affirm that you are landowners and residents of Eaton County, or do not own lands or reside in Eaton Rapids Township?
I do.
Yes,
Should I do a roll call for that, Stacy?
No, I think that's fine for purposes
Okay.
of the oath, but as Steve mentioned, for the next votes that need to take place, everything will be by roll call vote, and Steve will call those out. So the next item in the agenda is 2B, the election of a secretary and a chairperson. Let's start with the election of a chairperson, please. So we need a motion. Yep.
This is Tom Campbell. I make a motion that Steve Willard serves as the chairperson of the Board of Determination.
See how quick he was, so he didn't have to be chair? Can we get a second to that motion, please?
Is there a second?
I'm Tim Hogg, and I'll second.
Okay. It's been moved by Tom and seconded by Tim that Steve Willard be the chairperson of the Board of Determination. Is there any discussion between the board? If not, I'll turn it back to Steve for a roll call vote.
Tom Campbell,
Yes.
Steve Willard,
Yes.
Tim Hogg.
Yes.
Okay, with that, we'll need to have a secretary to the board, and I would move that Tom Campbell be the secretary to the board today. Is there a second?
I'm Tim Hogg, and I'll second that motion.
Thank you, Tim. So it's been moved and seconded that the board of secretary to the board would be Tom Campbell. Is there any discussion between the board members? If not, then we'll ask Steve for a roll call vote.
Tom Campbell,
Yes.
Steve Willard,
Yes.
Tim Hogg.
Yes.
So I would declare the motion carried. Next order of business is any motions that are on the table. And I would move to make a motion that the public comment should be limited to 3 minutes per person, giving preference to persons of living in the drainage district and to people who would speak for a first time. Also including that we not expand any times from one person to another. 3 minutes would be for that individual and that individual only. Is there a second?
This is Tom Campbell. I'll second that motion.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded that the motion for public comment should be limited to 3 minutes in preference to people who are living in a drainage district, and all persons would speak, who are speaking would be able to speak for the first time, and that no one should be able to pass time from one person to another. We'll have a roll call vote, please.
Tom Campbell,
Yes.
Steve Willard,
Yes,
Tim Hogg.
Yes.
I would declare the motion passed. Next would be on to the board of determining procedures. Stacy?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Cole, can you put up the map BOD handout district for me, please? So today is a board of determination. To start out and provide you a little bit of background, the Bentley and Depue drain is an established county drain in Eaton County under the jurisdiction of the Eaton County Drain Commissioner. Cole has now put up a map of the drain. So the area in yellow and red is currently what the Drain Commissioner has jurisdiction of. So that is the Bentley and Depue drain. That drain has been established, or its origins of establishment started in the 1880s. So with various maintenance and improvement projects that I'm sure the drain engineering staff will go over in some detail, but that is what the Drain Commissioner currently has jurisdiction over. The pink line is what we'll refer to all day as the drainage district or the drainage district boundaries. And so anywhere within those lines, if a drop of rain falls within property within the pink lines, it eventually gets to that Bentley and Depue drain. So a drainage district is synonymous with a watershed. Any of the properties within that line ends up going into the drain, so it's the drain's watershed. We also use the term special assessment district. So all three terms are basically the same thing for purposes of today's discussion. The watershed is the drainage district, and the drainage district is the special assessment district for the drain. There are no general fund monies from the county or the state or the federal government that go for paying for a county drain. Every penny spent is paid for by the entities that are within the special assessment district. For purposes of the district, you'll see in greater detail once we zoom into this, that the boundaries do not follow property lines. So as an example, if we have a piece of property, let's say I own 20 acres and the boundary may fall with 8 acres in the district and 12 acres outside of the district. You would only have those 8 acres in the special assessment district. The engineers take this actually down to the 100th of an acre. So we're only including those lands on the boundaries that have acres in the special assessment districts for a property when we look at those. So as I mentioned, when we have a drainage district, I'll go through very quickly the entities that make up that drainage district. So if there is state highways in the drainage district, the Department of Transportation will receive an assessment for benefit to those state highways. The County of Eaton would receive an assessment for the benefit to county roads. Eaton Rapids Township could receive an assessment for the benefit to public health. And the rest of the assessment is made up of assessments to the property owners, and that is based on acreage, and other factors that could be utilized include land use and any specific portions of a scope of a project that benefit one portion of the drainage district more than others, and that's really not determined until a scope of a project is actually happens. So as I mentioned, the Drain Commissioner has jurisdiction over this drain for over a century. There is an allowance to perform non-petitioned maintenance, like general maintenance, which would be repairing what already exists to bring it back to its previously established condition. And the current maintenance expenditure for that type of maintenance work is $5,000 per mile per year. And so if any work was required beyond $5,000 per mile per year, there would need to be a petition. The only exception to that is if there is a township resolution to exceed the maintenance limit, but those township resolutions can limit the amount of work and cannot approve improvements to the drain that take it above and beyond its existing conditions. So that would be deepening, widening, straightening, adding branches, extensions, increases in size and capacity, so to speak. So, regular day-to-day work can be performed without a petition. More expensive day-to-day work can be performed without a petition, but with a township resolution. And bigger maintenance projects that may be above what a township would be willing to send a resolution for, or improvements, require an actual petition and go through the process that we're in today. So a petition was received by property owners for the Bentley Depue drain, and this starts the process. So the first step to be taken by a drain commissioner when a petition is received is to appoint a board of determination. That board is made up of 3 property owners that reside in Eaton County, but do not reside or own lands in Eaton Rapids Township. So they cannot be affected in any way by the project in order to serve. So the purpose of a board of determination meeting is one thing: to determine whether a project, and these are the special words that are used in the drain code, whether a project is necessary and conducive to the public health, convenience, or welfare. So the board members are going to hear from the engineers as to the condition of the drain, and to hear from the property owners and the township as to what they're seeing with regard to drainage in the drainage district, issues that they're seeing, or whether they're not seeing issues, to help the board members develop a decision as to whether the maintenance and improvement petition is necessary or not. They can have a 2-to-1 vote. Their vote does not need to be unanimous, either for or against the necessity. If there is a finding of no necessity, then the petition project stops, or there is no petition project, and a new petition cannot be filed for a period of at least 1 year. If there is a petition project, then the project is basically, or the petition is basically taken from the board of determination and moved to the drain commissioner to determine the scope of what that project might be in consultation with their engineering consultants. So that's basically what the decision of the board takes place today is: yes, something should happen, or no, something is not necessary that would require a petition. What the board cannot decide is, yes, a petition project is necessary, but we only find necessary for point A to B. So on the map, the board might try to say, yes, it's necessary, but we only want you to work on the tile, which is the yellow portions of the drain, and the rest is not necessary. That is not an allowable decision by the board of determination. It's only yes or no. They cannot dictate the scope of the project. The scope of the project is determined solely by the drain commissioner. Likewise, the board of determination can't vote, yes, we want a project, but we want to limit the amount the drain commissioner can spend on that project to $20,000. or whatever number they might pick. That again is outside of the scope of the board of determination. How much a project costs and its scope is solely up to the elected drain commissioner to make those decisions on behalf of the drainage district and not the board. So basically it's yes, something is necessary, no, something is not, and what that project ends up being and how much that project ends up costing, if it is indeed found necessary, is only up to the drain commissioner to determine. And that often takes a while to determine after engineering takes place, easement acquisition, if any, takes place, permitting, if any, takes place, before we really are able to take bids and know how much a project is going to cost. So if we don't have the engineering today and we're just deciding, yes, something should be engineered and done, or no, something shouldn't, are we going to know the cost of a project? No, we are not. So many property owners may be on the call specifically to wonder if there is a project, how much is it going to cost? And that information is not going to be readily available today. There may be some estimates for certain parts of work that may be available, but we haven't heard from all the property owners to where they're experiencing projects. So a final project scope cannot be finalized at this time. There hasn't even been a finding of necessity yet. So we do not know the cost. If we don't know the costs, are we going to be able to tell property owners what their assessments might be? No. So that again is something that we'll have more information about if this is found necessary and a final scope is determined and bids have been taken. If it is found necessary and this takes place, then there will be a separate meeting just to go through the project cost and assessments at a later date that everyone will receive notice for like they did today. So sum it up. Maintenance and improvement petition, the board's going to hear from the engineer and from the property owners who live in the district and can give the best information as to what's happening. They're going to take that information and they're going to vote yes, something is necessary, or no, something is not necessary. If no petition again for a period of 1 year. If yes, they're going to turn it over to the drain commissioner to continue with engineering and develop a project scope and cost. So with that, at this time, do the Board of Determination members have any questions about the process?
No.
Okay, would it be okay to ask if any members of the public have any questions about the process?
That would be appropriate.
Do any of the board or do any of the property owners or others on the call have any questions about the process? Not exactly what a project is going to be, but what we're doing today or not doing today.
Again, you can signal you'd like to ask a question by selecting the raise hand option or dialing *9 if you're calling in by phone.
Or just wave your hands and Steve can
Or
see you.
wave your hand.
If you could take down your screen, please. Okay, I think with that, there are no questions that I'm aware of. And so, Mr. Chair, I'll turn it back to you to get to part 4 of the agenda.
Very good. Thank you, Stacy. Next is the engineering presentation, and Chris Matson from Spicer Group has a presentation. Chris?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm going to share my screen now and move into that part of the presentation. Is that coming through full screen for everyone?
Yes.
Yep. It is.
Perfect. So good evening, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Chris Matson. I'm an engineer with Spicer Group, and we were tasked by the Drain Commissioner to perform a condition inspection of the county drain in preparation for today's board determination hearing. So today's presentation is going to start with an overview of the current petition and the drain itself. We're going to review the history of the Bentley and Depue drain, go through some of the flooding problems that have been experienced in the drainage district recently, and review the findings of our condition inspection. And then after that point, we'll move into landowner comment, and we'll kick it back to the board to facilitate the landowner comment portion. So as Stacy mentioned earlier, the current petition was filed May 14th, 2020 by landowners in the district. And there's been a lot of recent maintenance requests on the drain that stem from flooding of the intersection of Canal Road and Columbia Highway. Now that petition, as I mentioned, was filed by the landowners. Moving into an overview of the drain itself, the Bentley and Depue drain is open and enclosed drain system. On this screen here, if you can see it, the drain is shown as the thick black line, and it starts or begins at its outlet into the Grand River, just east of South Michigan Road, or M99. And it flows to the west and north, crossing South Smith Road, South Canal Road, Island Highway, Columbia Highway, and then again crossing North Canal and Columbia Highway until its point of ending just southeast of Canal in Columbia. The drain is approximately 26,800 feet long, just over 5 miles. It is a tributary of the Grand River. 70% of the drain is open water course, open drain, or a ditch, and 30% of it is enclosed, and it is enclosed in storm sewer or clay tile, and the size of that enclosure ranges from 10 to 30 inches. Most of the enclosed drain portion is clay tile, and it was constructed in the 1930s. There have been several repairs since it was installed, and those repairs are likely other pipe materials. There was an extension to the drain near Columbia and Canal that was constructed in 1994. Moving further, what is the drainage district? Now, Stacy touched on this before. In this map, if you can see on the screen, there's a purple outline to the drain, and this signifies the drainage district boundary. And that these show the lands that contribute stormwater to the drain. So everything within that boundary contributes stormwater to the drain. It is also the drain's watershed and serves as a special assessment district for the Bentley and Depue drain. So as Stacy mentioned, there can be several different entities included in a special assessment district. Specifically for the Bentley and Depue drain, the current special assessment district or drainage district includes Eaton County for benefit to county roads, Eaton Rapids Township for benefit to its residents, Michigan Department of Transportation for benefit to state highways, and private property owners. Now currently, and this was in checking with the drain officers, roughly 240 different private parcels in the assessment roll for this drain, which constitutes about just over 3,700 acres. Moving into drain history, as Stacy mentioned, the drain was established between 1882 and 1883. The current state of the Bentley and Depue drain is actually a consolidation of 4 separate drains. Over the years, there's been petition maintenance work. 1885, 1895, 1904, 1932 is when the upper section of the drain that is primarily tile was tiled. In 1943 and 1951, there were larger projects on the open channel portions of the drain, downstream half of the drain. And then in 1968, there was a small project performed, and then again in 1994, the extension was constructed. Now, there have been numerous maintenance projects throughout the drain since 1999 that have taken place in all different locations along the drain. The main maintenance focus recently has been on the flooding of Columbia and Canal. This most recently left the road closed for 6 months or so at the end of 2019, beginning of 2020. Spicer Group and the Drain Commissioner's Office attended a township board meeting back in February and presented on some of the options regarding this flooding situation here at Columbia and Canal. So you can see here on the presentation, there's several different times that this intersection has been covered in local news regarding the flooding and trapped vehicles in the high water. It's an aerial image just showing that intersection again. This was earlier this year and the last year when there was ice over portions of that flooded area. A few more pictures here just showing the extent of some of the flooding there at that intersection. Trapped vehicles from those trying to pass through the high water. again from 2 years ago, a photo from 2018, local emergency responders pulling a disabled vehicle out of the floodwaters there. So in response to this situation, most recently, the Drain Commissioner's Office has performed some emergency maintenance work, some temporary maintenance work to remove tile in certain locations downstream of this intersection in an effort to alleviate the flooding and get the water off of the road, essentially in the quickest way possible. So because this work was performed under maintenance, outside of work under a petition, they will be needing to replace all of this tile. But for the current time, the tile is removed just so that water can be controlled and kept down at the intersection there. Here's just another location where the tile had been removed temporarily. This is primarily in the location north and west of the Columbian Canal intersection. Effort to review the condition of the drain, though we've been working on different parts of the drain and reviewing the condition on different parts of the drain for quite some time. This inspection focuses on the open and enclosed drain elements. We're looking at the different crossings that are installed within the open drain. We're reviewing the drain for any obstructions. Primarily, we're looking for severe erosion that can lead to sediment deposits in the drain. Anything else that is out of the ordinary when it comes to the condition of the drain and the flowing water inside the drain. The enclosed drain, we're looking specifically at the pipes and structures. Do we have any issues or blockages or older aged infrastructure, concerns with the condition of some of those pipes and structures. So the condition inspection is just that. It was an observation and inspection of the drain's condition from its outlet into the Grand River all the way up to the upstream end. This was not an engineering study. There's been no calculations as to capacities or the life cycle of any of these elements or parts of the drain. This is just a visual observation of the condition. So as I move into this, I want to show this map here, and this is similar to the map that was shown earlier in the presentation. The red sections of the drain signify open channel portions of the drain. And the yellow dashed lines, those signify the enclosed or tile portions of the drain. So you can see from the upstream end, Columbia and Canal area, the drain switches from open to enclosed and back again several times before hitting the open channel portion of the drain as the drain goes to parallel North Canal Road, or canal where it switches from North to South Canal. So that the open and enclosed switching of the drain is cause some issues there with maintenance in those areas, and I will get into those. First, to start off, I want to highlight some of the open channel condition photographs and some of the statistics of the things that we found while we were out there doing our inspection. So the drain itself has a lot of log jams throughout its length. There is like I said, 70% of the drain is open. In our inspection, we cataloged more than 85 different log jam locations along the stretch, along the entire length of the drain. So there were several severe areas where you have fallen trees, which are then trapping logs that are floating downstream and causing more of a blockage. The blockage just gets worse as storms route themselves through the drain system, the water comes up and is impeded by all of these blockages in the drain. So as I mentioned, 85 different logjam obstructions were observed throughout our inspection. Moving forward from that, there were sediment deposits, some obviously much larger than others, but there were 15 or so different sediment obstructions, noticeable, measurable sediment obstructions in the drain. A lot of times these sediment obstructions are due to or the result of other obstructions downstream, causing this sediment to be deposited upstream of those obstructions. So we found about 15 or so different obstructions due to sediment accumulation. Moving further from sediment are areas of severe significant erosion. You can see here in the photo, there is a tree root system that's exposed because all of the earth around this area has been eroded away. Similarly, in this photo, bank erosion on the banks of the drain with a shear edge here where the bank has sloughed in. And as an immediate result to these erosion areas, there's more sediment in the flow of the drain. And with other obstructions, that sediment gets deposited and becomes an obstruction of its own to the capacity, reducing the capacity in the drain. Furthermore, there are several drain crossings, just shy of 20 drain crossings through the open channel portions of the drain. These include major road crossings, M99, Canal, Smith Road, as well as private driveway crossings for residences and other private crossings for farm use or other private use. These crossings ranged in condition. There were some that were in fair condition. They seemed to not be deteriorating in their condition. There were some crossings, as you can see here, this is a newer metal, either aluminum or galvanized steel crossing that seems to be in fair condition. But at the same time, there were several crossings that were in poor condition or some that would be considered to be failed and would need to be removed or replaced. There's also a large mix of crossings that appear to be undersized and that were showing large either scour holes downstream or large blockages upstream. And a lot of that evidence can be seen around the crossings when they are inspected. And here in this photo is a footbridge that one of the abutments on one side is starting to turn and fall into the drain, as well as there being logjam obstructions on one side. So lastly, the tile condition observed as part of the inspection. The photos I showed earlier, the areas where the tile has been exposed to promote water entering into the tile system to help dewater and remove water from the road at Columbian Canal. Other areas inspected, show drainage inlet structures that have accumulated with sediment around their inlets, reducing the capacity and also leading to sedimentation in and through that tile system. I will say there was not a significant number of areas to inspect the tile. The tile is either completely underground with no catch basins or areas to get inside and inspect it. When we did find sections that were exposed either through catch basins or in this case here in the photo, possibly due to a recent repair, you see that this structure, this access point was added after the fact. The top section of the tile has been cut away to allow water in or inspection to allow for maintenance. And here in this next photo is another example of the structure which is plastic being added, likely after the case, to a drainage tile, which is clay, and the top of that clay tile has been cut away. And you can see the water flowing there in the bottom of the tile. This is pretty standard thing that we found out during the inspection. There were areas where you could get in and see the tile and it was flowing. There were several areas that had been removed temporarily to allow more water into the system as part of the temporary maintenance. So that concludes the general condition inspection of the drain. If there are any questions from the board relating specifically to the drain condition inspection, I can attempt to field those questions at this time.
Do any of the board members have any discussions that they'd like to bring up or questions?
I have a question. This is Tom Campbell. The photographs I've seen so far have been flooding at the intersection. In the path going down the drain full length, where other areas are there flooding, or is there not any flooding in that area along the drain?
So at the time of inspection, a lot of the blockages that we observed downstream, the notable log jams and sediment deposits, you know, in some areas we're holding back a foot or two of water. At the time of the inspection, which was over the past month, there wasn't a significant area of flooding outside of the banks of the drain. Now this could just be with the time of year that it was. Here on our map showing the different areas of the drain open and tile, the section of Columbian Canal is the area that has historically flooded. Now there was standing water over portions of the open channel along the west side of Canal. However, there was no water over the road at the time of the inspection. I would anticipate, though we haven't, as I've mentioned, studied the system as a whole, the blockages downstream, some of the significant ones would definitely cause a backup enough of water that there may be localized flooding in other areas, though we're not aware following our inspection.
Chris, this is Larry. And to add to that, Tom, the area west of Canal and south of Columbia, where it opens up first, maybe you can put your cursor there, Chris. That area floods very often. Much of the tile immediately downstream of that area has been replaced, but not with larger tile, one size larger, but is way under capacity to take the water. Once it gets away from the flooded intersection, then it floods in the woods immediately downstream along the west side of North Canal. Just because it wasn't flooded this last month doesn't mean there's not significant problems there, and we recognize those, and it consistently floods in the woods behind there also. Also on the yellow tiles that are outlined, there are several areas that we continue to have blowouts, and the maintenance crews from the county have been out there replacing and piecemealing and patching this tile system for the past several years, and very significantly this last year. But it just becomes a futile effort to try to patch the system together. But there are a lot of other areas that there's another huge area that floods, and then downstream, obviously in the open channel drain system is in rough shape. So.
And to add to Larry's comment, this section just south and west of Canal and Columbia, it's very flat. It's, you know, you wouldn't guess that there is much capacity in that area, and it is also very heavily filled in with sediment and silt. So that's a telltale sign that there is very little capacity left in that open channel, which, as Larry mentioned, leads to a lot of the reason as to why that floods through there.
Is that tillable farmland or lowland swamp?
Most of the land directly adjacent to the drain in this red area here is in the woods. Directly to the west of it, though, is tillable farmland.
Is that flooding?
The portion to the northeast, there is quite a large pocket that looks like it hasn't been farmed in some time that it would back up water into. Most of this though is farmed, but you can definitely see the outline of where this farm field is impacted by the flooding in this area.
Okay. Another question I have is on photos, I see a lot of water flow over the road. I don't see any pictures of any equalizers or tubes underneath the road. Those were all failed, or is there none?
So the pictures with the water over the road is concentrated in the Columbian Canal intersection.
Correct.
That intersection itself is in a low bowl. You've got hills feeding runoff into that low area. The only way for the water to get out is through the county drain. The county drain itself crosses both north to south on Columbia and east to west on Canal, and there is a cross culvert north to south on Columbia on the west side of the intersection. So the water essentially equalizes itself in that intersection. However, the ultimate outlet from that low bowl of an intersection is the county drain going north, then west, around back to the south.
And Tom, to answer your question on that, there's one small cross culvert underneath Canal, and there needs to be significant improvements there to 2 or 3 separate locations. There's a large amount of water that comes in from the northeast. Show that with your cursor there. And you can go out there today and it's still flowing like a river from the northeast area. That has not been accounted for in any of the improvements to the road or in those areas where there needs to be significant cross connections there. There also needs to be improvement to the Columbia Highway crossing west of Canal Road. Show that on your cursor. That's a huge restriction, Tom, where it's a deep cut. There's kind of a hill there, and the tile is way undersized. So it doesn't go over the road there, but it definitely needs additional capacity underneath the road.
From the pictures, I see all the water is trying to get from the west to the east.
Yes. Well, it's trying to get from the east, to the west and then to the south. Yes.
And it takes the path of on top of the road versus underneath the road because it looks like there's no equalizers to speak of
Yes.
to handle the volume. So this is a major item for the intersection. That's causing your problem of the flooding up there as well.
Yep, absolutely.
Okay. And you said there's other crossovers down the length of that drain for private properties?
Yeah, there are drain crossings in the open channel section.
So these are something that would be taken on. These are private owners that have to get to their homes from the road. So that's part of the scope would have to be looked at carefully.
Yeah, in all of the crossings are in varying conditions. So some would be, targeted because of their condition, some for their capacity, some may be sufficient enough that they don't need any work done. A lot of that needs to be evaluated and calculations need to happen. Some of those are for private residences, they're driveways, some are for farm access. It varies.
My understanding and from my feedback from others is this flooding has occurred in the last 4 years primarily in this intersection. That's due to a failure in the section real close where that red changes to yellow when it goes underneath Columbia.
And I guess, Tom, I'm going to address that if you want to talk about we've been at 2 separate township meetings and talked with the public, and we have reports of this intersection flooding for 50 years. I think there's a short memory on some of the flooding that's happened in the past, and I think maybe the storm frequency has changed, but this system has been under capacity since, and in our opinion, looking at it since it was put in as tile, and it has flooded in this intersection, and I believe that there'll be landowners that come on board to talk about it for many years.
Yeah,
it's not just been from the collapse of the tile. I think the tile's been being worked on and being kept to work and is operating condition as it can. It's just doesn't have the capacity to take the water away as fast as it's coming to it.
Okay. That's all I have at this time.
This is Tim Hogg. I've got a question for Chris. Two questions, actually. Some of the temporary repairs that we saw pictures of where there was HDPE plastic used, were those repairs made recently because of the flooding there? Or were those repairs that were made in the mid-90s that you had mentioned?
I believe that the HDPE work, the photos that you saw for the temporary repairs, that was stuff recently
Okay.
to help get the water downstream and off the road. You know, essentially doing what needed to be done to get the water to move the fastest in sort of an emergency situation.
Okay, the second question is the open channel erosion that looks pretty severe. Is that due to debris in the channel? Is it because the channel's not wide enough to handle the water flow? Do you have any thoughts?
Yeah, in a lot of cases, the severe areas of erosion were localized. So, and they were a lot of the times coupled with a large obstruction. So the water is trying to get around the obstruction and causing that local erosion. There is a general sense in some areas where erosion is happening just because of the channel's capacity. But for the most part, it was due to other large obstructions.
Thank you.
Chris, Steve here. Question about the erosion downstream that you had to pull out the tiling on to make the water flow across. Yeah, what's going to be the status of that? Because doesn't that have to be replaced at some point? And if it's replaced, what is it the size that would handle it? And if it didn't handle it this time and you have to replace it, or you have to replace it with the same size?
Yeah, so that was pulled out under maintenance. The drain office was out working with contractor to provide some relief in that area. Under maintenance, that pipe would need to go back at the same size and in the same location. With a petition, the pipe can be evaluated, and that section can be evaluated, and that can be replaced as part of an improvement if needed. It's definitely needed in this area so that it can be bigger or deeper. Right now, the fate of that area is sort of up in the air. It would definitely be a result of a decision made today. But under maintenance, that tile would have to go back to what it was as far as the size is concerned.
Are there any other questions from the board?
Just a point, this is Tom Campbell, just a point in regards to that tubing in the swamp area. Hope we have lessons learned from the Walton drains that we did, identify that where all plastic lines work themselves out of the ground. We have to be conscious of what we're doing there so we don't repeat our mistakes. Because that looks to be only buried about 12 inches underground from the pictures. Point of interest, that's all.
Yep, thanks.
If there are no other questions from the board members, then we'll move into public testimony. We do have some communication that has come in, and I'd like to read it in for the record. The first is a phone message from Diana Vogel at 8770 Columbia Highway in Eaton Rapids, and her message is she doesn't want the petition passed and said it has a lot of trash pulled out of the drain, and since then it seems to be working fine, so why not leave it? Second communication, which just came in, is Joe Werdick from 521 North Canal, and his comments are, he states he has lived at the area for 30 to 31 years, and this is the first time he remembers the intersection being closed for a significant length of time. He feels the work has been done over many years, and his preference is to see how things go now that the work has been done. He feels that there's a lot of traffic on the road that is not the residents that would be paying for the project. His preference would be not to see the big bill, but there is less expensive way to proceed, and that would be his preference, even if it's a seek and find method. He's not in favor of the petition. The third communication is from the Eaton Rapids Township Board at 2512 South Canal, who wrote a letter. RE, the Bentley and Depue Drain. Dear sirs and madam, the Eaton Rapids Township Board convened on June 25, 2020 for the special board meeting to discuss the upcoming Board of Determination to be held on June 30, 2020 in regards to the Bentley and Depue Drain. At a regular board meeting on March 12, 2020, the board voted to expend $60,000 from Township Cash Reserve funds for the work estimated to be performed. The work that the board has authorized includes the maintenance repairs of the north end of the drain at intersection of Canal and Columbia, which specifies parcel 120-004-400-070-00, also 120-004-400-090-00, 120-004-400-081-00, and 120-004-400-06000. The opinion of the Township Board is that no major construction is required other than the maintenance repairs that the board has previously authorized. Our opinion is also based on the success of the work that has been performed in March or April and up to this point in time. The cost of the work is estimated to be $15,000. The amount will be deducted from the amount appropriated of $60,000 by the Township Board, leaving the amount of $45,000 to complete the repairs as required to finish the project. The Township Board has agreed that the normal routine maintenance should be done on an as-need basis, and not only this drain, but on drains in the all drains in the township. In conclusion, the Township Board asks the board to determine not to go beyond the scope of maintenance repairs that other board has previously authorized and funded. Respectfully, the Eaton Rapids Township Board of Trustees. I would question, is there a representative from the Eaton Rapids Board of Trustees who would be available to have any discussion at this point on their letter? If so, they indicate so to Steve.
Yes. This is Bernie Morgan, trustee, Eaton Rapids Township Board.
Okay. Bernie, you represent the Eaton Rapids Board of Trustees. What comments would you like to make?
Well, I don't want to spend a lot of time on it, but historically this drain has been giving us trouble for a couple of years. We had authorized at the board level to do the repair at the very north end of the drain, and it was our determination that that would complete most of the, that would do most of the repair that needed to be completed. Part of that work has been done. They found some debris in the tile. They pulled that debris out. It's open at this point, needs to be completed, tile put back in, but it did within 10 days empty that corner out. We've been through a couple good sized storms, 2-3 inch storms. It did not refill. It did not give us any more trouble at that time. Going forward, we think that all the repair would need, at least for this year, we'd like to see how this works out, to try to be a little more conservative with our monies. We think that would be ample at this time on that drain. We as a board would like to support that financially. We have committed $60,000, which is a bid at one time to do the work on that north end. I was just out there today and looked at different aspects of that drain. It's not flowing a huge amount of water out of it. So it tells me there's still some plugged spots up on that north end that we talked about, because I was at the Island and Canal Road point and the water was not that deep at that point. There's approximately 40 feet of fall in that drain coming from the very beginning of it to the Grand River, like close to that amount, according to my GPS. So to have water standing up there at the very top end of it and not having trouble at the bottom end tells me that there's a problem at the very top end. And that's what we wanted to address with the work that we were doing. So that, like I say, the board would like to see that completed before anything else is done. We do agree that there is brush and stuff that needs to be handled and probably routine maintenance under the $5,000 mile maintenance. But we don't think it needs to be dipped. It doesn't need to be re-engineered. We don't need to lower any culverts, anything to that extent at this point. Any questions for me, sir?
Does our board members have any questions for Bernie? If not, thank you very much for your comments, Bernie.
Yes, sir.
With that, we move into the portion which is open comments by the general population. Reminder that this will be a 3-minute discussion by each participant, and that we'd ask that you state your name, your address, and whether you live on or have lands in the drainage district. And Steve, I'll give it over to you to be able to recognize the people, and we'll understand who would like to say something today.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chair. And I would just for the boards to know, we will have the timer up as you see, but I'll leave it to the board's discretion in terms of limiting comment, once it gets to 3 minutes or anything like that. That can be kind of the discretion of the chair as to allowing people to go over a little bit or anything like that. And then for anybody else, again, who would like to comment, you can select the raise your hand option, which is at the bottom right of the participants list. Or if you are on a telephone, you can dial *9, and that will indicate that your hand is raised and you would like to speak. And also you can send me a message in the chat function. At the bottom, there's the chat button, which you can send a message directly to me. I would just ask that you add your name and your address so that we know your name for the record, and we can give that to the board. So with that, we will start with the first person. The first person up is Rob Reed. Rob, if you want to unmute yourself and introduce yourself for the record.
Thank you, Steve. And certainly, my name is Rob Reed. I'm at 9224 Island Highway, which is the southeast corner of Island and Canal Roads. First, for my remarks, I'd like to thank Mr. Chairman and the board members of this Board of Determination for their time and energy on this, and certainly appreciate the time and energy that the trustees have expended on this as well. Just a couple of questions, maybe pointed towards the contractor, and that is, if we fix the top of this drain, what's that do to the bottom of the drain? To miss the trustees' comments, if we fix the top of this, and if there's an issue at the top, are we going to exacerbate some of the issues that you've seen in your survey downstream on this? The second thing is, and again, just a little bit of clarification, it'd be interesting to know what exactly was done last year at the corner of Island and Canal, and why didn't that seem to work? I don't know if we've addressed that directly or not in some of the comments to date. That's my comments and questions. So again, Steve, thank you for all your help in addressing my chats. And one last thing too, I guess from the surveyors of the drain, if you were to rate the effectiveness of this drain on a scale from 0 to 10, what would be the current effectiveness of this, of the current status of the current drain? Thank you.
Yeah.
Chris, would you like to answer that question?
Sure. I guess I can take the first one on the top of the drain. When we were out there at the beginning of these flooding events this fall, and trying to repair the drain where necessary to solve those problems, and it's exactly the problem that we found is as we removed sections of tile at the upper end, we pushed more water into the woods and behind some landowners on the south side of the highway. So it is a big concern from an engineering standpoint to do a maintenance project at the upper end of this, and then just push all the water down to the middle section of the drain and not do any work in the lower stretch. The entire, from our condition survey, the entire drain is in very poor condition. And to give you a number on that, I look at a lot of drains all year long, and it's in very poor condition. There are things that need to be worked on throughout the entire drainage system. And I do not recommend to the drain commissioner that the upper end of this be opened up and repaired and then not fix the rest of the portion of the drain. We already have problems with the tile blowing out in the middle section of the tile system without putting this additional water and pressure on that system.
All right, thank you. Thanks to Rob for the question.
Okay.
Is there another person who would like to speak?
Yep, the next person is Michael Cronkrite. Michael, if you could unmute yourself and introduce yourself for the record.
Yes, thank you, Michael Cronkrite. I own the land that are the subject of many of the photos at Canal and Columbia on the land on the west side there.
Excuse me, Mike, could you give us your address and that you're living at, please?
8851 Columbia.
Thank you.
So the general comments that I want to make are, and some perhaps responsive to things that are already said, but in the first place, there's only X amount of water that we're talking about. You'd either drain it off slowly or you can drain it off rapidly by opening something up, but it's the same amount of water, and its volume over time is really the essential issue. When my property was flooded, including going over the road, it flooded as a result, in my opinion, of a long period of time of no maintenance on the drain. And the drain on my property is partially, as you can see from the map, it's partially an open ditch and it's partially tile. But if you stand in the high spot in the middle of the tile, and I'm talking about back at the time of the flood, you can look over to one side towards the road and see the water is high, and you can look at the other side and see the water is low and not the same level. And that kind of creates a simple equation. The drain on my property was flooded. You could replace a 200 foot of drain and start over and have all that water flowing. So if it wasn't for the fact that the drain was plugged, which is exactly what happened in the fall, and there were some attempts to dig it up and unplug it just about deer hunting season, much to my chagrin, but we participated in, or we allowed that to happen, and it was fine. The bottom line is that if you take that water off slowly, which is what's supposed to happen with the drain, then it's adequate, and it's been adequate over the years. There has been, by the way, I have a long history at this corner. There has been flooding for a number of years, but back, I want to say sometime in the 90s, we raised the road up about 6 feet. And so you really have to look at that history since that time. But here's the simple assessment that I would make. If you I think we have a 12 or a 14-inch pipe on our property. If that just stayed open and was properly maintained, we would have never had any flooding over the road. We put up with this for 6 months or whatever it was, merely because the drain was plugged. They came out finally, and most recently, dug up the plug section, and within days, the water's not on the road anymore and hasn't been since. So I am supportive of, I think it was Bernie Morgan and the township board that said, let's try fixing the drain here on my property and see what that does. I'm not saying don't do anything else to maintain the drain elsewhere. It does look from the photos that it was horribly maintained, but it seems to me that we can do this on the maintenance budget, especially with the help of the township, and can probably do maintenance for the next several years on the maintenance budget and have this problem solved. So that would be what I would advocate for, and I'm asking that we don't move forward with this petition. Thank you for your time.
Okay. Thank you for your comments, Michael. And the next person, please.
The next comment, the username on here is farm2234. If you could introduce yourself, state your name and your address for the record.
Hello, yes, I'm Judith Bennett. My address is 2213 South Canal Road. I have property in the drain district. The property is at the northwest corner of Columbia and Smith. First, I would like to say that I agree 100% with the contents of the letter from the Eaton Rapids Township Board, I would like to see the Board of Determination vote no on this petition and therefore allow the Drain Commission office to first address the problems that seem to be the greatest at the corner of Columbia and Canal. I would like to see them first use the money voted for this reason by the Township Board. I also have a point of clarification. What work on the drain would be done as a result of this petition? Would it be the work by the engineering firm and the actual fixing of the problems? Or would it just allow for the engineering part of the project?
Mr. Cherry, would you like me to answer that?
Please.
All right, excellent question. So if the petition was found necessary, the drain commissioner can completely determine the project scope after the engineering. So it would not just be the engineering, it would also be a construction contract as well. And what would end up happening would be a result of that engineering. I think you heard testimony from the engineer that there was many parts of the drain downstream from the culvert that may need repair or replacement. And so that may be part of the project, but until there's more engineering done to get the specifics down, we don't have that information yet today.
Okay. Thank you, Judith, for that question, and Stacy for answering.
Okay, the next comment is from the username XT1650. If you could unmute yourself and say your name and address for the record. There should be an option coming to you to unmute yourself. There you go.
Okay, I missed my name. I'm sorry. I was trying to plug in my phone.
Okay, that's fine. Go ahead and say your name and your address
Okay,
for the
my name is
record.
Beth Wright. I live at 871 North Canal Road, Eaton Rapids, Michigan. I'm just up from the corner. I did speak with Ruth Ann yesterday. I left several questions that I didn't hear covered. I wanted to thank Bernie. I totally support him 100%. I like that proposal. That was one of the questions, what happened to the proposal? One of the other questions was regarding the garbage that was removed. It was my understanding that as soon as that garbage was removed, the water started flowing. Regarding the Board of Determination, I know that they are listed as an unpartial party. Just my thoughts, if they railroad even once, they are not an impartial party. And I'd like to know who owns the drain. I'd like to know if the drain is working, which it is at this point in time. Why fix it? We live on Canal Road. People go up and down this road by the hundreds of thousands, and to put the cost on 244 landowners is just beyond ridiculous. I can't even begin to go there. And that's it. I'm good.
Mr. Chair, if I can address some of the questions she had.
Thank you, Stacy.
Absolutely. So the drain commissioner has jurisdiction over the drain, but that doesn't, so ownership is a nebulous term. So I want to say the property owners still own the property where the drain is located, and the drain commissioner has an easement over the water course and the pipe, and I guess owns the pipe, but has jurisdiction is normally the words that we use. So if it's okay, Mr. Chair, I just want to talk a little bit about the difference between the petition and the resolution. So when a petition is filed by property owners, the drain commissioner basically has a duty to hold a Board of Determination. And so if it's found necessary, then the project could entail just what the township talked about. It could entail more than that, depending on what the drain commissioner deems most appropriate as a project. I am not sure whether the other aspects that were discussed could be performed under the $5,000 per mile or not, but the limit, regardless of how much under that township resolution, is $60,000 plus the 5,000, I think is the way that it was worded. In terms of the property owners paying? Because I think your question was excellent. Is that it's not just the property owners that are paying the cost of the project. And Bernie, I'll get to you in just a second to clarify the terms of your resolution. It's also the road commission who would have responsibilities to help pay for the system as for the benefit to those county roads and the township as well. So it's not just the property owners. And then, Mr. Chair, I think Bernie wants to elaborate on the terms of the resolutions so that everybody is clear.
Very good. Bernie, would you like to step in and state your name, address, and if you're a property owner, please?
Bernie Morgan, I'm a trustee, Eaton Rapids Township Board. I do not have property in that drainage district. I'm representing the board. I live at 2499 Morgan Road in Eaton Rapids Township. With regards to the resolution, we did have a resolution at one time that was going to allow more work to be done over the 5,000 per mile. But we did back away from that when we decided that we would go ahead with $60,000 funding for the repair on the very north end of that drain, which is what some of that work has been done. It did essentially pull the cork on that wet spot at that corner, drain it out. Walking that ditch and looking at it, there is some issues with brush and whatnot on it. There's no question about that. But if you're clearing brush, it's 2 miles away from that corner. It's not going to affect whether or not that water comes out of there. The issue with that water standing there is in the very top end of that drain where there's issues with that tile. When they dug into that this spring, they found some brick in there. They found some metal in there. Obviously, there's some problems with it. Number of repairs have been done to it over the years. There's different size tile. They're out of place. There's the board's determination and township board's determination that if that was replaced with new upgraded tile, that it would alleviate that flooding problem at the corner. Once you empty out that, I'm going to call it a bowl. Once you empty out those millions of gallons of water out of that bowl, you can accept a 2 or 3 inch rain without getting flooding downstream because there's going to be control going downstream. That's what we're doing now. Presently, it's getting so there's less and less water there. The fields are not being flooded in this process. Like I said, we just went through a 2 inch rain, 3 inch rain. It did not flood the corner. It's still open. The road stayed open. So, to do the entire drain at some point, it may merit it. To do maintenance on it, absolutely. It needs to, as in most every drain in the county. There's several drains on my farm that are county drains. They need to have some work done on them. And that's an ongoing thing. It's not a unique thing. But I really believe, and looking at it, and my board is 100% with me, that we need to just do the work in the very north end, which the township is wanting to fund. That way, we don't feel that the property owners are going to get stuck with a big bill to fix essentially the water in a road. That's the way we're seeing it. We're not seeing it as drainage of fields. We're seeing it as clearing water out of a road. We feel it's a good spend of township funds to do that work to clean that road up. It's not going to help anybody as far as farm ground. It won't make any difference on any field, I do not believe. It's all woods, it's all marshy area that's being drained. So, I think that once we get this done, once we get that bowl drained out, going forward, you won't have any problem of flooding downstream. Any questions from you, sir?
Thank you, Bernie, for your comments. We'll look for someone who's next to speak.
Yep, the next person up, or people up, I should say, are Tom and Janice Heck. If you would unmute yourself and introduce yourself for the record.
Hi, I'm Janice Heck at 1040 Brandon Circle.
Tom Heck, same address.
First, we wanted to give our thanks and our support to Bernie and to the Township Board. We support that proposal 100%. We've lived here for almost 30 years, and we have had periods of flooding over that time. But over these last 15 or so, it's gotten significantly worse. My question, so you have addressed many of them already, is you mentioned 85 log jams. You also have sediment and obstructions and erosion. To me, this feels like this is all maintenance. Those 85 log jams didn't happen in the last year. Those 85 log jams haven't happened probably in the last 5 years. So why isn't the maintenance catching these log jams and these other issues to keep this water flowing? The other point comes to what we heard. We did not see. What we heard was the garbage that was dug out when the county finally did go into that northwest corner. We heard 55-gallon drums. We heard a refrigerator. I don't know, I didn't see it. There were so many things that were buried there that seems to me to be the major cause of this backup. So we want to make sure that if this is followed through, especially the township proposal, will the county step up and start doing the maintenance that they're supposed to be doing that seems to be lacking? That's all from us.
Well, thank you, Tom and Janice, for the comments. I don't know if there's anyone has the question there.
So Steve, just to kind of assist in responding to Ms. Heck, and I'm going to ask the engineers. So when you're looking at 85 log jams, again, there may be some, I assume maintenance monies have been being expended on the drain, but if we could hear from Larry, the engineers, I don't believe that it's possible to remove that many log jams like that under the maintenance limit, or to replace tile like that under the maintenance limit. Larry, could you speak to that a little bit?
Yes. Well, first of all, I think if we were just looking at what the township's resolution would be to just do the upper end, there's a couple issues there. One is then we're expending those dollars and we don't have the additional $5,000 per mile to do the rest of the drain the first year. We could do that in years subsequent. But we usually estimate between $20,000 and $35,000 a mile to restore drain systems that have gone to this, come to this level. So let's say it's a $20,000 a mile and there's about 3 miles there in the lower stretch. So it's about $60,000 worth of work in the lower stretch that needs to be done. And, the point being is that, we need to literally look at this whole system, upstream and downstream. And some of the points that were made on the cross culverts on the road, under maintenance, we cannot replace any crossings or work on any crossings or do those repairs. Can't do any upsizing in pipe, even if it's from 12-inch to 15-inch pipe. So there's a lot of hamstringing that would go on under that resolution. And I know that the drain commissioner in the past meetings with the township has committed to doing a cost-effective approach and may decide that, when we get out and look at things, we can put together a project that would include some road work by maybe the road department, some work on the upper end of it, and some maintenance and improvement work in the lower portion of the project. That's all to be determined in the future. But as we look at it right now, if we're just going to do repair the existing tile, there isn't going to be a solution that's going to solve the problem.
Steve, if there's
well, it looks like, I don't know if Tom and Janice, I think they still have some time left. They might have a follow-up question to that.
Okay.
Actually, a question for a person who cannot be here. There's a family emergency. And it's for Matthew Clymer, who lives at 915 North Canal Road, which is the first house south of the intersection on Canal. And over this 4 to 6 months that this road has been closed, we have so many vehicles that come down the road, the canal, and they either go into Matt's driveway and back out and it's all torn up, or they come on our road and they've torn up our road. Ours is a private road and we have to pay for our own maintenance. But Matt has asked me to put forth a question that because of the lack of everything that's gone on with this situation, his personal property has been damaged as a result. What methods are there available for him to get his driveway repaired?
So under the law, there's a statute called PA 222 where he has a right, if he wishes, to file a claim for damages. However, in order to be, basically there's a governmental immunity that applies, and there's PA 222 lays out the exception to governmental immunity. But in order to be able to get funds from either the road commission or the drain commission or whoever he's seeking to get money from, they would have to show that they had, there was a defect, that they knew about the defect, that they had the statutory authority to fix the defect and failed to do so, and that was a substantial proximate cause. And, you know, as the attorney for the drainage district, if I got a claim in that, and he has every right to make that, there would most likely be a denial, because even if it was considered a defect, the drain commissioner without a petition did not have the legal authority to address the defect, to alleviate the defect. Would be the likely response, because it exceeds the maintenance limit. So there can be differences of opinion on that, but that's likely. So basically what I'm saying is he has a right to file a claim, but there's a general governmental immunity with certain enumerated exceptions to that immunity that are laid out in that statute. And we can certainly provide, if you email the drain office, they can provide you with that form.
He has attempted to contact the drain office, from what I understand, 3-4 times, and has not gotten any response whatsoever. That's why he asked if I would bring it up in this forum.
Okay, so if you could please email the drainage district, I will work with the drainage district in getting him the appropriate form. But
Thank you
again,
so
in
very
terms
much.
of alleviating the condition, I think that's what the purpose of today's discussions are, to try to figure that out.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Steve.
Yep, thank you for your comment. The next participant is the username Diane's iPhone 6. If you could please unmute yourself and state your name and address for the record.
Yeah, this is Diane Bogle. I'm at 8770 Columbia Highway. I'm right at the top of that open channel of the drain there, and I watch the geese land on it all the time. My question is, well, my comment is, I was really pleased to hear from Bernie. Thank you, everybody, for your participation. That proposal from the township ticks my boxes and doesn't scare me. The idea of the petition, you see, a lot of us are senior citizens on fixed incomes, and that open petition just looks like a blank check, and that's a pretty scary idea. And also, the petition came within like 2 weeks after that petition was submitted. They found that treasure pile buried over there and pulled out whatever it is they've been pulling out, 55-gallon drums and bed springs and all kinds of good stuff. And then the water started flowing. And we were told, well, within 5 or 6 days, that corner will be dry. And lo and behold, within 5 or 6 days, the corner was dry. And Friday night, we received nearly 4 inches of rain here, and not a drop of water was left on that road after it stopped raining. It just seems like that was the key to the problem. Certainly, maintenance needs to continue. All these log jams need to be addressed. I don't understand how this problem has gotten so far out of hand if you know, this drain is supposed to be having regular inspections and regular maintenance, and it sounds like that ball has been dropped or something, because this is a big problem now, but that needs to be whacked away at. But it sounds like between getting all the junk out of the drain and then the project proposed by the township, I think we should see how that all works. And hey, if it floods again, next year somebody can put a petition in and start over. But I say, if it's not really broke, let's not, break the bank to fix it. That's it.
Thank you very much, Diane.
You're welcome.
Next participant is the username Galaxy Note 8. If you could unmute yourself, introduce yourself for the record. Looks like that person may have dropped off. So, oh no, here we go. Galaxy Note 8. Are you able to unmute yourself? All right, well, we will move on. There's another person after them. Aaron
want to just
Ackle.
remind them how to unmute themselves when they're on a phone, just in case.
Well, I sent them an unmute.
Okay.
I pressed unmute for them, so it should pop up on their screen. But there also is the option on your phone. The unmute button is at the bottom. It should say mute and unmute, depending whether you're muted or not. So yours would say unmute.
Do you want, Aaron, do you want me
Yeah.
to unmute? Okay.
Aaron, yep, go ahead.
Okay. So we live at, I'm Erin Ackles, and I live at 749 North Canal Road. We are one of the properties that has all or a large portion of the open part of the drain. During the time of this flooding, they have pulled items out of some sort of sinkhole that seems to have resolved the issue at hand for the moment anyway. According to Diane's testimony there. I also noticed that when that stuff was pulled out, even though we are south of the drain, our woods were also not flooded anymore. So our woods do get significantly flooded in the winter and in the springtime as the snow and ice melts and everything, which isn't too big of a deal until the mosquitoes give out or until the mosquitoes come out. So that is where our property is, or that is where flooding occurs on our property. I'm just referencing this information because I believe Chris mentioned that there was no flooding and no one has complained about it. However, even though there is flooding on our property, I am in support of the township's proposal to repair needed areas on the drain with the money that they've allocated for that. The flooding on our property doesn't happen for very long, and it doesn't generally cause any major issues for us. I do want to confirm with the people who pulled stuff out of the drain. I'm not quite sure which entity did that, but could someone please let us know that that is true or false, that other items besides drain tile were pulled out of the drain, things like bed springs and drums and things like that, and how are we going to address that issue that seems like it might be illegal?
This is Eric from the drain office. We have done maintenance, obviously, over the last few years on replacing pipe and stuff like that. I don't know where all this garbage is coming from with 55-gallon drums and bed springs. Working with our contractors, talking with our contractors and talking with our maintenance guy, I know there was some debris, normal log jam debris and stuff like that, but all this garbage that we're talking about, I don't have any knowledge of that.
So it's my understanding that Diane spoke with the person pulling that stuff out. So somebody's lying to you. You might want to look into that a little bit more.
I'd be more than happy to do that.
Perfect. How would that be addressed then if something like that were to be found in the drain?
The only thing that we can do as a drain office is just continually either, walk it more frequently, or, we can't patrol it 24/7 to make sure people aren't stopping by the side of the road or throwing things in the drain or stuff like that. We don't have a per se police force to enforce illegal dumping into county drains.
Right.
It'd be more of we hear from a resident that's on the drain or someone driving by that there is an obstruction, and then we would have to hire a contractor to go out there and remove the obstructions.
There's no legal action against the properties that the debris.
If it's determined, it's and I can turn this one over to you, Stacy. If we can determine, I believe you can determine that the property owner is doing it and causing it. I think there's some action, but I'm gonna turn that one over to our legal Stacy.
Okay.
Yeah, so there is one, we have to determine who did it. And if it's a person outside of the drainage district that just drives by and dumps things, that's it would probably cost more money to try to
Track them down.
adjudicate that. Yeah, then, and if it's a property owner, we can ask them to pay it and put that as an assessment on their property, but that would change the apportionment. And that would, if it's extremely egregious, it might make financial sense to try to do that. Otherwise, it becomes the due process of changing someone's assessment. The mailings, the holding of public meetings like this costs more than the cost of the dumping, so to speak. But if it's egregious enough, we definitely can take that into consideration in the assessments.
Thank you. I'm all set right now.
Thank you, Aaron, for those comments and questions. Steve?
It looks like Galaxy Note 8, you found out how to unmute?
I think I'm all set. Can you hear me?
Yep, I can. Go ahead and introduce yourself and state your address.
Robert Sepiter, 7290 Island Highway. I am not in the district, but we've been pretty vocal about that intersection. I think it was Mr. Campbell that made a point that I'm glad he made. There should be culverts under Canal Road, because even when the drain was working a year ago, we had surface water flowing over Canal. And I've been to all the meetings, the board meetings, road commission meetings, and it sounds like the road commission's under the understanding there's a drain under the road, and it's not theirs because it belongs to the drain office. Road commission has pretty much ignored that corner, I think. The road is sinking. These are all issues I've raised before. But today, if my understanding is correct, all the Board of Determination is doing is deciding, is there a current valid need to go forward with a petition today? And it sounds like the township is willing to fund a pretty big option. And it sounds like a lot of the property owners would be happy with that. I would think that if today's only action can be the Board of Determination says, yep, we're gonna go, or no, we're not gonna, I think there's been a surplus of comment and fact that it's not the right time for the Board of Determination to approve a petition. But that said, that corner needs a lot of help. And I think the road commission's been lacking in their efforts for that road to go down that far and the drain commission be required to keep the water out of there, especially when they've added all the extra field tile and drains over the years into that corner. It's a complex issue. Bernie Morgan's been, I think, very active, and I'm happy that he's a commissioner in my township. But I think today the Board of Determination's only vote is, do we approve the petition or not? And I would see it's going to be hard pressed for them to say yes. So there's more work needs to be done. It's flowing today, but we're pretty near in a drought right now. The rain we got the other night, of course it didn't have an impact because we got so much dry ground, you could almost hear the ground sucking up the rain as it fell. But 5 months ago, we had too much water and the road was closed for months. It's a complex issue. Thanks, Bernie. Mr. Campbell, I think you're onto something. The road water needs to flow under the road so that if Wagner's group is doing their part to get the water out of the pothole, the east side of the road drains under the road, not over the road. That's my comments. Have a good day, folks.
Thank you, Robert, for those comments. And Steve, for the next person, please.
Yep, the next person is phone number that ends in 3084. You are unmuted now, so you can go ahead and introduce yourself and give your address, please.
Good morning, this is Dan Winslow. I live at 9877 Kingsland Highway, and I have multiple parcels in this drainage district. And I think in this pandemic times, nobody's looking forward to an additional 10-year tax burden placed upon them. So somebody could use the road. That's why I support the township's position, and I thank Bernie and the board for going the extra mile and trying to figure out this complex issue. And when you say that there's stress down level or down below the drain at the lower level, I don't think that should surprise anybody, because when the corner fills up and there is 1 million, 2 million gallon, whatever number you want to put on it, and then you pull the plug, you would think there's going to be a large stress level at the other end. If the township fixes that corner, as the water comes in, it's allowed to go out and not build up and put pressure on the rest of the system. So again, I'd like to thank everybody here today for being involved in trying to get this thing figured out. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan.
All right, thank you for your comment. The next person is username Chris. Chris, if you can unmute yourself and introduce yourself for the record.
My name is Christine Yordy, and I'm at 362 North Canal, and I am in that area. I have noticed that the water over the road is not actually really a problem if people can drive around, and that's not that big of a deal, and that mostly the people who live on the road aren't the ones really complaining. And I also noticed that with the rain that we just got, the road, Otto Road in Charlotte between 69 and Vermontville did go underwater pretty quickly. And that's a county drain that runs through there. So that kind of signifies that this issue down here on Canal and Columbia might possibly be fixed for the moment. And I would suggest that we wait and see how that pans out. I'm not really up for adding more to my tax bill so that 2,500 plus cars can go down this road 100 miles an hour and throw their trash out. I'm not about that, but that's pretty much my view. My comment.
Thank you very much, Christine, for those comments.
Thank you.
Okay, so we have a couple of people that in the chat who would actually like to comment themselves as well. The first one is Will Reynolds. Will, if you would like to unmute yourself and introduce yourself for the record.
Hey, my name is Will Reynolds. I live down on 9631.
Sorry, Will. We're having a little bit of trouble hearing you here. I don't know if you might be kind of blocking your microphone or something like that.
Oh, no.
Yep, that's better.
I apologize. Apparently I'm having computer issues and app issues. I can't even find the raise my hand button. Willard Reynolds. I live on 9631 Petριeville Highway. I've been a resident in Eaton Rapids Township since 1994. I'm a former neighbor of Janice and Tom Heck. I live doors south of them. I'd like to just mention, and this is opinion, we paid for the extension of that drain to go up to the farm behind that the properties that I used to live on. And I believe that I want to say it was like $1,400 and change for 5 years. And I kind of feel like, you know, and I'm just a country boy. I grew up in the UP, and, you know, you stand out back in the back of my property, and I know you may have field tiles and whatnot in there, but as far as I was concerned, my water was draining uphill. And that's my only comment on that. But I believe I want to thank Bernie Morgan for coming up with a solution. I believe it's a good, valid solution. The water's flowing. You know, we know that there's a section north of there that's got issues also. So I kind of feel the money that the township devoted is good enough, and enough said. That's all I have to say. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Will.
Thank you. And then we also have a comment from Robert Dowdy. Robert, if you could unmute yourself and introduce yourself for the record.
Thank you, Steve. My name is Robert Dowding. I live at 311 North Smith Road. I have a farm that is in the drainage district. Just like to preface my comments by saying I recommend that the Board of Determination reject this proposal or petition, and that I support wholeheartedly the work that our township commission's doing. I'd like to reiterate the comments that Mrs. Heck made regarding maintenance. When you talk about finding 85 log jams and 15 sediment obstructions, that tells me that there's been a lack of maintenance over a number of years. And also, I have concern with some of the photos that were shown of the drain inlets that were added that had sediment build up around them. I'm just curious why, given the location with sandy and organic soils, that there was not riprap or some other means of controlling the sediment inflow into those drains. So it's, again, just feel that there's should have been more emphasis on maintenance over the years, since we've lived on this property since 1990. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob. Is there anyone else?
There is one hand raised, but it is a repeat comment. So I would leave that to the board to decide how you would like to handle that.
I can do it.
I think we would be glad to hear second comments now, if we can keep those short, please.
Okay, Mr. Reed, if you would like to unmute yourself and give your comment.
Mr. Chairman, thank you for indulging. Certainly, it's been great to be able to express comments on the project and on this Board of Determination. It certainly makes us all feel well, and hopefully our voices have been heard. Unfortunately, there is no direct accountability to this Board of Determination, the trustees, or even the Drain Commissioner. The only thing I would say is I would remind everybody on this call, everybody in this district, to reflect on the status of this drain, the maintenance that we've seen in the last years, and actually do something tangible, and that is exercise your right to vote August 4th. Thank you.
And could you please just state your name again for the record?
Well, yeah, Rob Reed, 9224 Island Highway.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bob. Is there anyone else with comments?
Again, if you're calling on a telephone, you can dial *9 to raise your hand, and everybody else select the raise your hand option.
Again, are there any other comments that anyone would like to make at this time?
Looks like we have one more comment from Chris. Chris, if you could unmute yourself and again, state your name for the record.
My name is Christine Yordy, and I'm at 362 North Canal. And I did want to make a comment about the images of the cars that were stranded in the water. A lot of times those people go around the signs that say road closed. So I think that's, you know, kind of disobeying the law a little bit. And yeah, they're there for a reason, because the water's too deep. And that's my comment. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris, for that comment.
We have one more comment here from Todd Gill. Todd, can you unmute yourself and state your name for the record?
Hi, my name is Todd Gill. I do not live in the Drain Commission. However, I do drive that stretch of road frequently. And it appears to me that once the commissioner got involved in the mitigation of that major flooding, that him and his department did a great job in making a temporary fix. So I applaud them for that. They seem like they're on the ball. Other than that, it's not really, I guess, my business, you know, how they proceed from there. But I did just want to express my appreciation as a road traveler that they got in there and in my opinion, did yeoman's work, and thank them for that. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, Todd. Hey, are there any other comments?
Mr. Chair, I do not see any other comments at this time.
Okay. Are there any other comments? I would ask, are there any of the petitioners that are here today any one of the signers that signed the petition and initially? I don't believe so. With that, if there are no other comments, last call, then we'll move into discussion of the board. So at this time, the Board of Determination has any questions that they'd like of anyone to present at this time?
None for me.
Tom, you're all set? Okay.
Yep.
Tim?
I don't think I have any questions. I don't know if we have an opportunity to make a comment prior to the actual vote.
Yes, we do.
Is now that time?
Yes, now is the time.
I appreciate everybody that spoke up. I mean, from every direction. And maybe it'd be nice if Stacy could clarify in my mind exactly what, there was a suggestion that it was a blank check. But that needs to be clarified a little bit more. At this point, we don't really know how much money's involved, right? I mean, it could be far less than what people are imagining. Also, it's split, between 240 property owners, which I think helps everybody. And the road commission is going to pick up a portion of this. And I don't know if the road commission is contributing any money to the township's, contribution to try to resolve things. That's one comment. The other comment is, when I see the repairs that were made to drain the intersection, they're definitely temporary repairs. I've seen enough of this stuff, and it may have solved the problem for the time being, but I suspect the problem's going to come back. The other issue I have is the amount of erosion, because whatever settled in those culverts and stream crossings is probably a tenth of what actually made it to the Grand River and went on down the Grand River. And so, I mean, erosion is a lot of, people don't worry about it that much, but it is a concern for the health of the main waterways like the Grand River. Those are about the only comments I have to make, but I certainly appreciate everybody's concerns about increases in taxes and things like that. I'm just concerned that I think the pipe is probably undersized. The channel needs to be not just cleared out. It needs to have some work done to it to smooth the course of the water through there, so it doesn't carry so much stuff with it and deposit so much stuff at these snags. But that's about all I have to say. But I do wonder if Stacy could clarify a couple of things regarding the actual, our actual approval.
So I'm going to ask the engineers to assist me where I mess this up. But so when you approve, the drain commissioner will decide if there is an approval. If there's not, again, I think they can still act on the township's resolution. If there is an approval, then the drain commissioner can work with the township to come up with a project scope. And again, where the blank check label is used, that can cut both ways. It could be less expensive than, as you mentioned, some people anticipate. We just don't know the answer. So I guess the conundrum that the board is in is that the township has made an offer to approve and pay for maintenance. And you've heard the concerns of the property owners with regard to costs involved. I think the point that the engineer was making is the township resolution with regard to that doesn't really allow for all the other fixes that were shown in the engineer's report. I think Larry testified earlier that, there's probably $20,000 worth of a mile, 4 or 5 years more worth of maintenance that can't even begin under the maintenance limit until next year. And so it would take years and years to get the maintenance that the property owners complained of as deferred maintenance performed under the statutory allotment. So I think that's a conundrum that the board is in. Could that all be done under the petition in 1 year and then spread over a period of many years for the financing part of it? Yes. Could that be done absent the petition? No. But again, that's the board's decision to make. I don't know if I helped you or not.
I think you did. I just wanted to, I appreciate your respect for the conundrum.
Yes, it's not mine. Thank goodness, that's yours.
Eric, I have a question for you. I know this is a lot of the discussion from many of the people is that they don't feel they can afford it. In our township, in the past, we have several drains that are being worked on, and your board has the board of the Drain Commission has worked with our residents about October or November of each year, and the people have been able to come to the Drain Commissioner's office, find out how much they owe in a drain, and if they feel that they cannot afford that dollar amount, that you will work with them. Is that something that is still going forward, that you can work on an individual basis on people to assist them?
I don't know, like, I'm not exactly sure where that's coming from, Steve, they're working with individual. I know when we do projects in yours, we work with we do like a project role instead of a normal maintenance role for a project. And what we do there, we look at all different aspects, and it's usually we might charge the township more, we might charge the county more, we might do a little bit more like that to try the burden of a project different to the residents. But if it's a normal maintenance role, without having a day of review and changing the proportionments, we can't lessen or make someone else pay more unless we have a day of review for that whole drainage district to be able to change someone's apportionment.
Okay. In the past, is there a portion of this that would go to the road commission for this project if it moved forward?
Yes, there's a portion that goes to the road commission for the benefit to the roads. There's a portion that goes to Eaton County. There's a portion that would go to the township. Apportionment because MDOT is also in this drainage district, so apportionment that would go to MDOT, and the rest, whatever those percentages, the rest of that percentages would be dispersed over the landowners in the district.
And is that an at-large cost to the township?
That is an at-large cost to the township.
It is, or it is not?
It is.
It is. Thank you. Are there any other questions of the board members?
I have a question of clarity from Eric. Is the maintenance $5,000 for maintenance per mile every year? So if this is a 5 miles in length, this is $25,000 you put toward the maintenance of that drain per year?
That is correct. We're allowed $5,000 per mile per year. But again, I want to mention that we're allowed to spend that on maintenance dollars, but all those maintenance dollars still get assessed back to the drainage district. It's not that we get $5,000 that we can spend and it doesn't get assessed out. The $5,000 a year per mile still gets assessed out.
Okay. So, and Eric, is that assessed to the area that you're working in, or is it assessed to the entire drainage district?
Again, that is assessed to the entire drainage district because we have to go off the historic assessment roll for the last day of review we've had for the drainage district.
Okay.
So Eric, for the purposes of maintenance, the road commission would pay a portion, MDOT would pay a portion, just for the maintenance. You're able to essentially assess them for the maintenance that you do every year individually.
Whatever the historic roll is on file right now, whatever the percentage is for MDOT, whatever percentage is for the county, the benefit to the 14A calculation for for the roads, and whatever percentages, the historic percentages for the residents in the drainage district, that's how that money gets assessed right now. We can't say, give $50,000 to the road commission, only give 5,000 to the residents. We have to, by law, have to give the whatever the last historic approved day of review for apportionments. That's what we have to follow. Yes, but if there is a petition, then we can reset the percentages. We can make MDOT higher. We can make anybody higher we want. We can change the percentage. And a lot of time what we do is we do a maintenance roll and we do a project roll for a petition. And the reason for that is there might be a more benefit to the road, or more be a benefit to the township, or more benefit to the certain subdivision, or something like that would in future maintenance not be as fair. But for this project, it is more a more better role for the project.
Is Bernie Morgan still available? Steve, is Bernie Morgan still available, representative?
Yep.
Bernie, my question for you is, what's the township's plan past this first project that you've done? What's your long-term plan for this, since you've allocated $60,000? What is your total plan to do this?
Well, the township would like to see the completion of the work that was started, and that would fall under that 60,000. We want to approach the
Could you
county.
be more specific about what your plan is? Not just the expenditure of funds, but what is your plan?
Well, yeah, once this part is done, then we want to contact the county and get the cross drains installed. Hopefully we can cost share with that with the county. And then going forward, we'd like to see the routine maintenance that needs to be done. It's my understanding that they can do 5,000 per mile, and it can all be, so you could assess 25,000 per year roughly, and you could use it all in a 1 mile section. So over the next few years, even though that's going to go on landowners, billing, you're still going to get all the maintenance work done, and that would clean up all the brush and the debris and those other spots we're seeing. So our hopes is that would clear out that drain so it would function a little better than it is, and also would keep the water down up in that corner. And then, the routine maintenance that falls under the norms where everybody that owns the drain knows that they're going to have a little bit of that cost. Does that answer your question, sir?
I think in part. I'm still hearing back to, we're spending so much dollars, but I don't hear what your actual plan is per mile to do that. Are you going to go in, and have you got who you've mentioned that you've got a contractor all ready to go?
Oh, okay.
15,000. So who's your contractor, and what are they doing?
Well, that was all set up through the drain commission, actually. It's our understanding that any work that's done on a drain has to flow through the drain commission. We can't actually go out there and do it ourselves. So we approached the drain commission, and they had collected a bid process about a year ago on this. We used that as the basis for the amount of monies that we wanted to spend. And then we okayed that work to be done. And then I believe at that time that Eric contacted the contractor originally put the bid in. He still accepted that bid. So that's, being managed by the county drain commission. We're just funding the project.
I think Steve's question, or the chair's question, and maybe Eric can answer this, what did that bid encompass? What was included for construction work in that bid?
The bid, we had put out a bid last year for regular maintenance, replacing the tile at the same elevation, same size, from the north of Columbia on Canal, where it goes from open to tile all the way to the road. We did not have the road crossing on Columbia in there because it's too deep and it was been too expensive. And then on the other side of Columbia Road to the south, replace that tile at the same elevation, same size. The one thing that I want to make, I know Bernie, you mentioned it there about cross culverts. There was no cross culverts in our bids, and we cannot put in cross culverts because it would be outside of the scope. It would be an improvement, not a maintenance. We can
Right,
just-
that's why we were gonna contact the county road commission about the cross culverts, because they do offer out a cost sharing where we would take part of the responsibility, they would take part of the responsibility to do that. And we just haven't contacted them because we want to get the water out, get the drain working properly first, and then we want to do that this summer.
Eric, has there been any expression from the road commission at this point?
We've had communication with the road commission. They there's they believe there is drainage issue. They believe that some of the drainage issues needs to be taken care of before the road needs to be taken care of, but without completely talking with them. I'd rather have, there has been communication. They know there's an issue. I don't know what their stance is for the project or against the project, but they are aware of it. They know there's a problem. They were at the township meeting that we had at Eaton Rapids Township back in February.
Are there any other comments or questions from the board to anyone? Tom?
No.
Tim?
No comments from me.
Well, we want to thank everyone for coming today to this meeting and having a discussion. It's been very frank. We welcome your input. This is a very complicated piece right now to look at. I guess the best thing is to do is to poll the board and see if there is a motion from either of our board members towards either to make a motion that we propose maintenance and improvement of the Bentley Den is necessary or not necessary. That's really the question we're talking about here. Is it necessary to do the work on it? Is it not necessary to do the work? So that's the question that we have to pose to the three board members. Bob, do you have any input? Bob Starkweather, do you have any comments or questions that you'd like to ask at this point? You need to turn your.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes, now we can hear you.
Okay. Yeah, I'm in agreement with you. It's a pretty complex thing, and I'm kind of going along with the township and trying to, it might only be a Band-Aid, but it's pretty obvious that the residents aren't willing to have a big tax bill. And that's a big thing today. People just don't like that. So obviously what little bit of repair they've done has helped. So from what I say let him finish it up, and maybe in the next year or two they can clean out some of that stuff, and maybe they can get 5 years out of it. Maybe they can get more, who knows?
Okay, good. So are we ready to move forward? I guess my last comment would be, I keep coming back and looking at the board. I know their heart's in the right place. I know they want to do something. They've looked at it. They're the ones that are in the area that are overseeing it. After reading their letter and after talking to Bernie, I'm just a little concerned that they don't have a total plan for the whole project. They have it in a small area. I guess my thought would be that I would rather have seen them step forward and say, we think we're going to spend so much this year. This is what we're going to accomplish over the next 5 years, so that everyone is on board, not just we need to do this to eliminate the cost for our residents. I'd like to see the board step up and have a complete plan of what they want to do. Otherwise, the Drain Commission is responsible for the whole thing. If we move forward with this, then they're going to do the whole project all the way from top to bottom. With the election year coming up this year, the board could change, and then the whole project could drop, or it could move forward quickly. So I see that as problematic. So those are my comments. I support the board in their effort. I think it's a good thing they're going to take over and try to do that. And I guess I'm at a point of a motion from our board to determine which way we'd like to go. So does either of our board members have a proposal that they'd like to give?
I would defer to Tom Campbell.
Thanks a lot.
We're all deferring, huh?
Okay. Bernie, I got a question for Bernie before I leave this motion. How strong is your board in making decisions and knowledge to work with the Drain Commission?
Well, I think we're more than willing to do whatever they would ask. You know, for our township board to step forward with $60,000, just as, and I agree with Steve to some extent, it is kind of a starting point. I think going forward, that if there's more monies needed, that the board will be there to support. You know, obviously residents have to have a take in this too, because it is a private drain. The board's intention is not to clean a private drain for farm advantation, you know, to advance farming, but to clean out a road issue. That to us is the major issue. Is you got a road that's closed, you can't get police and fire down there, you can't get ambulance service, people can't get to work on a shorter drive than normal. Those are the parts that we looked at as a public safety side of it. But, you know, in response to what Steve's saying, that yeah, we do want to continue on with work on that, and we want to make sure that it stays open and that it doesn't turn into a large project. So the maintenance going forward will be in supportive of that. As we would in any drain in the county, just or in our township in particular. But you know, this one in particular, we're more than willing to step up with some financial help to get things rolling.
What I'm saying is you got to make a scope of work for a long-term solution, not just a short-term.
Right. Yeah. And I think, you know, with that in mind, our next board meeting, I'm sure we'll be discussing that, what the long-term plans are, because he's right. Boards do change from every 4 years. They're pretty rare that they stay the same. So we need to have a plan in place. And, you know, this is a start. Is it a full repair? Probably not in the long term. You know, I don't know, but definitely what we've done has made a huge difference. And once that bowl is emptied, I think it will stay emptied. So then we need to look at what maintenance needs to be done going forward on downstream.
Well, Bernie, can I ask, is this township money coming out of a general fund? In other words, all citizens of the township, all the taxpayers of the township are contributing some amount to it?
Yeah, it's coming from our cash reserves or a rainy day fund, whatever you want to call it. You know, because we were able to cover all of our operating expenses of the township, the fire department, et cetera, and still have some funds left over. And we thought this was an excellent use of taxpayers' money, particularly our township's taxpayers' money, to fix a road in our township.
Well, these are people outside your district then, this particular drainage district you're using money from.
General fund money, yes. It's everybody in our township. You know, we get our millage from the township, and then we get the monies from the state, their revenue sharing, et cetera. We don't use only about 80% of it on a normal basis in our township for normal operations, which leaves us some monies to do other things with. And in the past, we've done some road work. You know, we have put culverts in, et cetera, and then we just thought this was a good spend of our township finances, which we well can afford to do.
So,
thank you,
Bernie. I have a question for you. Then, being the devil's advocate here. So, if there's work that should be done in other drainage districts, are you going to step forward and do the same thing for those other drainage and help those people out in those drainage districts at the same time? Since you're helping one drainage district with the funds for the entire township, or when there's another drainage district, are you going to do the same thing going forward?
Only if it's safety related, like in this case, it's a road that's blocked because of a drain that's blocked. So we see it as opening up a road as much as we are doing anything else. It's not to help out a farmer with some farm ground. I've got drainage work going on my property right now, or is going to be this summer. I don't expect our township to help pay that because it's doing no road, no general area that's going to be in a benefit of everybody in the township and the county. With this particular spot, we're draining out the water that's on that road. So it's a benefit of everybody in our township, everybody in the county. You know, it's not just because it's a drain. It just happens to be a drain that's on private property that we're working on. So I guess it would be up in the air if another drain needed repair and we could see that it was a benefit to more than just the property owners, then we may look at it. I wouldn't say if we could or not. I can't speak that far for the board, but it would be, in my opinion, unlikely that we would do any other drains unless it was something to do with the road right-of-way area.
So does that mean that your long-term plan is only just for this year to complete the road and not to continue to do any other work down the drain then?
Well, long-term, obviously the work needs to be done down the drain. And there's provisions there that the township would have to write a resolution, as I understand it, which we did earlier, allowing more monies to be spent on that drain. And that would be one of the things that we could do. And I think what we would propose and or push and or ask for more of that work to be done. But our limits would be financially. I don't know as if we would spend a lot of money on cleaning brush 2 miles off from a road. You know what I'm stating at, because we're trying to fix that corner of Columbia and Canal, not necessarily a farm field.
But doesn't it flow down through the whole drainage? So those points that are being obstruction, is that just not pushing the water down to a problem that's downstream for somebody else then?
I don't believe so, because going down there and looking at those spots, I was there today. The drain is not a lot of water flowing through it. You can see where it did from the storm we had a couple days ago. But at this point today, there's not a single one of those culverts is running more than 6 inches deep. The drains themselves are pretty shallow. You know, I didn't walk out on the private property. I just looked at it at each intersection that I could. There's about 5 of them that I was able to get to. The water, once we pull the cork, so to speak, on that bowl at Columbia and Canal going forward, I don't think, and the board agrees with me, that that's going to cause a major problem downstream for anybody else. You know, you got accumulation of millions of gallons of water up there. Once you alleviate that accumulation, going forward, you get a 2-inch storm, it's got somewhere to go, and then it's going to come out of there at a controlled pace because you're only going to have a 12-inch tile or 16, whatever it is that's up there. And that the rest of the drain, walking it, from what I can see, I could see nowhere where it was backed up to where a culvert was running half full, or if the ditch was not moving. Everywhere I looked, water was moving quite nicely. That's not to say there isn't spots out there, but I don't see that this work that we're doing here is going to make those spots worse. It's not going to flood anybody's property, in my opinion.
You do understand that if this repair that you do for 60,000 fails, this petition will come back and you'll be out the 60,000.
We do. We don't feel it's going to. The results of what we've already done up there, I believe, prove that it won't, because we did pull the cork on that. It took about 7 days to empty out feet of water that was over that road. So once, like we said before, once you empty that out, you've emptied that bowl, you've got a place for a large storm to put some water temporarily. And, you know, everybody that's been out there and looked at it, Eric can attest to this, there's been all kinds of debris come out of that. I've talked to a gentleman that was standing there when the excavator was operating. They took brick out of there. They took some cement blocks out. I don't think that gentleman is leading me astray. I think he was honest with his opinion on what was there. He was told by the previous landowner that he'd thrown brick and stuff down in that hole to try to stop it, that water. We all know that happens. Anybody that's a landowner knows that there's blowouts, people throw stuff in there. So, you know, we are willing to expend that $60,000, which at this point looks like it will work. And if in a year from now we're still having problems with that, then we'll have to look at it again. But the township board's opinion is that right now we do this amount of work, make sure that it is going to work, and then go forward from there.
is any portion of that $60,000 going to go towards possibly getting the advice of professional engineers?
I'm sure some of that would be, but that would be, we don't manage that, the Drain Commission manages it, so that would
Maybe
be
that
up to them
question
how
is
they
for
do
Eric.
that.
The only thing we can do with that, we can get an engineer involved with it and have them design it, but there's no reason to get them to design it because all that we can do is put back to the same elevation, the same size. So if we're going to do that, we might as well save the dollars and just put it back to the same size and same, because we can't do anything else under maintenance.
All right. Good point.
Going back 10 years, 15 years, 20 years ago, this drain worked fine. You know, it would flood out from time to time, just like probably 20 county roads do in the state, in the Eaton County alone. That's not unusual. The question in the board's mind was, do we want to tax everybody on this drainage district, re-engineer the drain, lower it down by 5 feet so we can prevent one road from being plugged with water for 1 week a year? And we didn't feel that made much sense financially. So we preferred to go with the route that we're doing, and there already is results and they're positive.
I just want to just to mention on the maintenance that's been done already, the maintenance that's been done, that's been opened up, all that has to be closed yet. It's all open. It hasn't, that pipe has not been put back in yet. So I just want to make sure that everyone's aware that there is, yes, we did remove some pipe, but none of that has been put back yet. So it's open drain right now.
And Eric, you're not allowed to set new structures what about access structures? Because you'd indicated there were long spans between manholes to be able to get in and do any maintenance to the pipe in the future. Is that something you see as?
We do have areas that we do have structures that we can get in and jet per se, or do maintenance out of. I don't know exactly every structure. That clay tile was put in early 1900s, a lot of it. So, what the proposal was for maintenance before is just to completely remove the clay tile and put back what's there with the same size tile at the same elevation, which there are points that we would have access to get into the pipe if we did the maintenance.
Are there any other questions from the board? No. Comments?
Sorry, guys, but we can't end the meeting without one of you making a motion.
How darn.
Okay.
All right.
Can I ask one final question? If the question is, does the drain is maintenance on that drain necessary or not necessary? Then that answers the question. There's maintenance necessary, as that's my opinion. Now, I'm not voting that way necessarily. I'm just saying, clarify the question. Clarify what the motion is, I guess, is what I'm wondering if we can do.
Here's the motion. The motion would be to make a motion that the proposed maintenance and improvement of the Bentley and Depue drain as petitioned on November 20, 2020 is necessary or not necessary and conducive to the public health, convenience, and welfare of the community. So if our board is there, I guess I applaud the township board for what they're doing. They're stepping up. I just think that that maybe that 60,000 would be at least be at large cost at a minimum. If they wish to put more monies towards an at large cost, they can do so. I think getting MDOT involved in it, they need to get the road. I think the road commission needs to be involved in this. And the township level is not gonna make it happen from past experience that I've had. The 50-50 program is there, but that doesn't complete it. You do what they're talking about doing. That, you know, if we get back to that, we're talking about another $80,000 or $90,000 for a mile to fix that road with the road commission, and 50-50 puts another $40,000 back on the township to have to come up with to do it. So I think they're taking on a large burden, and I don't think there's a complete plan on doing it from what I've heard. So I would have to propose that I would make the motion that the proposed maintenance and improvement of the Bentley Depue is necessary. And I believe I've seen enough of the evidence from the 85 structures that are along there. And I think having the Drain Commission take it over, they will be responsible for it. And in the long term, they will have the responsibility to make sure it happens and do it in a fair and equitable way.
Okay, so you're making that motion, Steve?
I just made the motion.
Okay, I'll support that.
All right, it has been moved and seconded that the motion that the proposed maintenance and improvement of the Bentley Depue drain as petitioned on March 20, 2020 is necessary and conducive to the public health, convenience, and welfare of the community. It's been seconded by Tom. Is there any discussion by the board members on this motion?
The reason I'm in favor of this is only because we need to do it right one time, make best use of our money, and make sure they have a good project when it's all done, and have all players, like you said, the road commission, the drain commission, and them together to solve this. And the township, like you stated, can help alleviate some of the pain if they can contribute additional funds during the year toward this.
I agree. I agree
Tough
with
decision, I'll tell you.
Yeah, it's tough. I agree with what Tom is saying, and I think that trying to kick the can down the road forever is eventually the can's going to wear out. I agree with Tom.
Both of us have engineering backgrounds. We need to do it right the first time so we don't have to do it again.
And I'm struggling a little bit with the township. I know they've got a big heart. They're doing it, but I'm not sure that they have a complete direction of where they're going. I've heard a little bit of confliction there of we're only going to do so much, but it isn't going to solve the whole problem down the road. And I don't think they have the resources to do it over the long term. And I don't see I have the letter in front of me, but I still don't hear a long-term commitment to solve all the problems that are along there. And doing it for just one, putting all the money towards one drainage district, I don't see that as being fair to the entire township. So I have to vote for it is a necessity, and I think it's been shown to do it. So at that point, if we can take Steve, if we can take a roll call vote on it.
Yep. Tom Campbell.
Yes.
Steve Willard.
Necessary.
Yes.
And Tim Hogg.
Yes.
I would announce that the board has approved this for the necessity of the conduct of the public health, convenience, and welfare of the community. I want to thank everyone for their input today. This was really about as tough as one as I've ever been through. And it's a tough time. I realize that. And I know that the Drain Commission will work diligently to make this happen right. So thank everyone for coming today, and we're adjourned.
Before everyone gets off, I just want to mention that there is an opportunity to appeal today's decision under the drain code. Anyone aggrieved by today's decision has a right to appeal that within 10 days to Eaton County Circuit Court. And thank you, and have a good night.